point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 606th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and Nancy Wolf. Nancy is not here today. She's been doing things relating to her family, and her family seems to be living in Washington, D.C., so it's a long drive down. Anyway, I expect she'll be back next week. Today is the 9th of January, 2025, and we're starting the show with articles that have to do with the 2nd of January, 2025. So we're doing from the 2nd to the 8th. This show is based on materials that go up to my blog, geoharvey.com, that you can visit on the internet. You can find the articles that I'm dealing with by going to the blog and clicking on the date, which, as I said, starts on January 2nd. The date is on a calendar at the blog. Or you can go to the description of this show, and the last line in the description is a link to a place where the specific articles that are used for the show are kept. So if you go to the calendar at the blog, you'll find there's anywhere from 10 to 15 articles per day, but the 3 of them normally go into the show, and the link that goes to the blog that is just for the show is that blog post is just 21 articles that have to do with the show. Sorry, I'm being unclear about this. The place that we'll start here is with an article from Renews, and this is a wind farm, Enercon image. The title of the article is EU Achieves Cleanest Power Mix in 2024. In 2024, the European Union achieved its cleanest power generation mix ever, with higher levels of renewables leading to a 59% cut in emissions compared to 1990 levels, according to Euroelectric. The year 2024 marked the lowest emissions from the European Union power sector, with a 13% drop compared with 2023. Now, I think this basically speaks for itself in many respects. What has happened, of course, is we've had a number of things that developed in the last couple of years, one of which was the COVID pandemic coming and a drop off in demand for energy because people were working from home or not working at all. Also, there was a general change in the sourcing for energy, especially in Europe, because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine that took place in 2022. And that led to huge increases in the amount of wind power and solar power that were used at that time in order to displace electricity from gas, because the gas was primarily coming from Russia, and the Europeans didn't want to reward Russia for invading Ukraine. Okay, the next item here is also from Renews. We have a picture of workers on an offshore wind farm. The title of the article is Lion Link Included in Nedervik 3 Blueprint. Dutch Climate and Green Growth Minister, it sounds like a farmer, Sophie Hermans has included an electricity interconnector project between the Netherlands and the UK in the offshore wind energy development framework. The Lion Link DC interconnector will be realized through Nedervik. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce Dutch very well. Nedervik 3 offshore wind project. I wanted to include this in the discussion on the show because what we're seeing is an increase in the amount of energy that's being shipped as electricity from one place to another. There's a link from Norway to I'm going to say Netherlands. There's a link from Norway to Germany. There's a link from Norway to the UK. There is a link that is planned as a submarine cable from Morocco to the UK. There are, I think, multiple links between Ireland and the UK, and that is across the sea, not just from Ireland to Northern Ireland or back. There are submarine links from Scotland to England, and it just goes on from there. There are links from various places in the Baltic to other places in the Baltic and across the Mediterranean. These are being built. Very few of them existed 10 years ago, but they're being built quickly now. And because of the situation that I mentioned earlier. Okay, we have an item from Clean Technica here. And this is a Toyota car called a BZ4X. Toyota's BZ4X gets $6,000 price cut for 2025. That's the title. Toyota's BZ4X hasn't sold very well, maybe because of the name. Toyota has reduced the oddly named EV's cost by $6,000 for 2025 to just under $39,000. And maybe it's more attractive at that price point. Toyota certainly has a big customer base and some are brand loyal. Yeah, that's true. Maybe some Toyota stalwarts will buy a BZ4X soon. Well, it's interesting to me that they are talking about dropping prices on EVs, and I have no doubt we will be getting to more of that relatively quickly. Toyota has not developed its electric vehicle capacity very much at all, and there are companies that are actually somewhat in decline in 2024 from 2023, Tesla being one. Other companies, well, we'll talk about them. We're up to Friday, January 3rd, and we have an article from Clean Technica. This is a weird article, and it talks about massless batteries. You know, the heaviest thing in an electric vehicle is the battery, and they're talking about batteries that don't weigh anything, and that is not exactly correct, but you know, it's the way they're doing these batteries, you can treat them like they don't weigh anything. The title of the article is Next Gen Massless EV Batteries Could Have No Weight. Simply removing the weight of the battery could increase an EV's range by 70%. The scientists behind that estimate have been hard at work developing a, quote, massless, end quote, EV battery, meaning a battery that adds no extra weight because it also serves as a working part of the electric vehicle's structure. And what is happening here is if you look at the things, I'm going to put that back up. If you look at what you've got here, you've got a car and a boat and a drone and an airplane. You take the airplane, if the wings, the skin on the wings and the body of the airplane If those were made out of a solid state battery, then that battery is doing two things at once, one of which is maintaining the charge that you need for the vehicle, but the other thing is actually holding the shape of the vehicle. And what they're working on is a battery that can do that. It's a solid state battery. We've been talking about solid state batteries for a long time, and it is capable of having a shape that is useful. And I'm not sure how successful this is going to be, but it may be that we aren't going to have batteries at some point in the future consisting of cells and things like that. There'll be something different. And one thing that you can count on is that in the future, as we develop new technology, there will be things that are different. Okay, I am going to go on. Here we have another article from Clean Technica, and the title of the article is BYD Bus and Commercial Vehicle Sales Explode. Now, what we have there is a photograph of BYD's Skyrail. The synopsis for this article reads, most of the EV story is about consumer vehicles, but there's a lot more. Electric buses, shipping trucks, delivery trucks, ore trucks, and so on. BYD sells a lot of those. The company's electric bus sales were up in 2024 by 18.6%, but BYD's non-passenger commercial EV sales were up by 138% last year. And the article really didn't mention this Skyrail thing, but apparently BYD can provide that in the United States. BYD, by the way, is the biggest electric vehicle manufacturer in the world. If you count plug-in hybrids and so forth, along with vehicles that are dependent on dedicated batteries, and that's all, BYD sells about 250% of what Tesla sells, and sells them all over the world. Shenzhen, which is the city that has the headquarters of BYD, has over 17,000 electric buses in it, made by BYD. That's just one city. And that's not 3 times as many electric buses as there are in the United States, but it's a lot of electric buses. The Chinese have really taken a monopoly lead in the electric bus market. And Tesla is an important car manufacturer, but I saw an article this last week about the leading companies for EVs worldwide, and of the 20 highest selling EVs, Tesla has the number 1 and the number 3. But of the 20, 11 of them, including number 2, were vehicles built by BYD. This is a big company. And I think that BYD was growing last year. Sales at Tesla declined marginally. Okay, the next item that we've got is also from Clean Technica. And the title of, I should mention, this picture is a picture of a wind turbine at the South Brooklyn Marine Terminal. I don't know what body of water we're looking across there. I think it might be, I just don't know. But this is the South Brooklyn Marine Terminal, and the Brooklyn, as I'm aware of it, is a place where there is the Brooklyn Navy Yard, which of course is no longer a Navy Yard. But the South Brooklyn Marine Terminal has a wind turbine, one, which makes it kind of like the one wind turbine south of Boston near the Boston Globe. headquarters. I forget exactly where that is. Anyway, this is from Clean Technica, and the title of the article is Equinor Shields Self Against Trump on Offshore Wind Threat, Nails $3 billion for New Wind Hub in Brooklyn. News from Equinor is that Equinor, that is not Ecuador, that is Equinor, is that it has $3 billion in new financing, a significant slice of the expected total of $5 billion in capital investments needed for its new wind hub. Equinor seems unfazed by Donald Trump's attitude toward wind power. I don't know that I included it in the I don't think I included it in the article for this week, but I might have. I just don't remember. There were a number of Republican Congress people, I think both from the House and from the Senate, who sent a letter to Donald Trump, as I recall, but they asked that the Inflation Reduction Act be retained. As I understand it, all of these people voted against the act, but they want it not to be closed down the way Donald Trump wanted it to be, because their constituents have benefited from it. The Inflation Reduction Act and investment in America and various things that were done emphasized the so-called red states as places that are employing people. So if those acts are undone, the damage is going to be happening primarily to people who are in states that voted Republican. That was not done by intent. That was done because the administration, Joe Biden's administration, saw that something needed to be done. It did it. It did it most in areas where it was most needed. The jobs were most needed in Republican areas, and so that's where, not most of the jobs in the sense that a huge number of them, but more than half of the jobs were in those areas. So that's the way that has developed, and the Republican Congress people don't want those jobs to be lost. And indeed, I don't think Donald Trump wants the jobs to be lost. It's a horrible thing when you tell people that the other side is responsible for being acting inappropriately in terms of finances and being needing to be conservative and so forth. And then you go and you tell the people who voted for you that you're sorry they're losing their jobs, and what are you going to replace those jobs with? I think things are not going to happen quite the way they have been suggested. Okay, we're up to Saturday, January 4th. We have a picture of solar panels and an article from Yahoo. The title of the article is Solar Power is Getting Daytime Electricity Demand on the New England Grid. Is cutting daytime electricity demand on the New England grid. There were more than 100 days in 2024 when customers used more electricity from the region's grid at night when most people are asleep than during the day. Before 2018, there wasn't a single day when that happened. The trend reflects increasing use of rooftop solar panels. Now, what has happened here, clearly, is that the availability of electricity on the grid has increased with solar panels. And that increase has meant that traditional sources are not providing as much electricity during the daytime. Notably, that would be true of natural gas. Natural gas power comes in different flavors. Some of it is baseload. The baseload just runs. Some of it is peaking power, which are plants that might run 9 or 10 days a year, but they provide extremely important for the extremely important peak demand. Some of them are load-following plants, and those plants, the peaking plants, the load-following plants, are being used less because in the past they would have been used primarily for meeting high demand, which mostly comes during the daytime, and the solar power comes during the daytime. So it makes more sense to buy cheap solar power than to buy very expensive power from peaking plants and so forth. The cost of solar power is very low compared to natural gas. And so we'll go on to an article from Clean Technica. That is a picture of an $8,000 electric vehicle. The SAIC GM Wuling Consortium, which is producing this vehicle. The article comes from Clean Technica. The title is An $8,000 Electric Car, the Wuling Binguo. Kyle and Alyssa from Out of Spec Reviews checked out a tiny 5-door, fully electric Wuling Binguo, which is a product of SAIC General Motors collaboration. The base load of the hatchback costs $8,000, and there is a premium version for $12,000. 3 LFP battery pack options are available. Now, LFP is lithium ferrophosphate, and I should point out lithium ferrophosphate is not the same as lithium ion. Lithium ion batteries can catch fire, and I should say lithium ferrophosphate batteries can catch fire too, but it's the lithium ferrophosphate are far less likely to, and they don't burn as hot. I had a friend once who was hired by a consultancy to go out into a specific field where this could be done without environmental damage. They had called him and said, "We understand that you have a gun." And he was very reluctant to answer that, but he said eventually, yes, he had a gun. They said, "Could you go to this field and with a gun, and somebody will meet you there, and there will be a battery, and we want you to shoot the battery, and we're going to take a video of what happens." So he went out with his gun, which was a handgun. It was not a powerful handgun. It was just an ordinary handgun. And he shot the battery, and about 60 seconds later, it was on fire. Just the availability of oxygen is enough to get a lithium-ion battery burning. And the trick to lithium-ion batteries is to keep them cool and to prevent oxygen from getting to them. Lithium ferrophosphate is a lot easier to deal with. There are other batteries that are even easier yet, and some of them can't burn. There's more types of batteries out there than you can shake a stick at. So I would suggest that before people get too worried about the batteries that are involved, they kind of learn more about it. Okay, we have an item from Renews, and we have a picture of Guam. That is a picture of Guam, and that island was taken over by the Japanese and retaken by the Americans during the Second World War. It is I don't know exactly what it is, but it's whether it's part of the United States or it's being protected by the United States. Here we go. It's the U.S. Pacific Territory. Okay, the title of the article is BOEM Seeks Lease Areas Off Guam Coast. The Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, which is BOEM, is seeking nominations for possible wind energy leasing areas off the coast of the Pacific Territory of Guam. BOEM has announced a call for information and nominations which will gather public comments to inform potential leasing areas. Now, I think basically we're just talking about the needs for electricity, the needs for electric energy, and so forth, exist all over the place. Everywhere there are people, there's likely to be a need for electricity, and here we're seeing that. Guam needs to have electricity. I remember when I started my my blog, which was 2012, 2011. No, 2012. I had run essentially the blog, but I'd done the same job, but it had been communicated to people by email in 2011 and the first half of 2012. But early on in the time of the blog, I kept track of places that were powered renewably, and one of them was the island of Tokelau, which, as I recall, is an island nation in the Pacific, and it was completely powered by solar energy and batteries with a diesel generator backup. So it's everywhere. Okay, sorry about that. I have to get back to where I was. There we go. The next item is from Clean Technica, and it is the picture that we have is a picture of solar manufacturing, and the title of the article is "Solar Manufacturing is Soaring." The U.S. solar manufacturing got its big boost from the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 and has provided a lot more blue-collar jobs in the country again. The article tried to call them green-collar jobs in parentheses, but I refused to copy that. It's just too hokey. The IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, has been the biggest reshoring legislation in the history of the United States. Reshoring meaning we're bringing jobs that have been lost to other places back to the country again. The Solar Energy Industries Association published some facts about solar manufacturing, and what we have here is solar manufacturing in that picture. I'm going to put that up and take it down. I don't know why, but it seems that the color in the picture has changed when I do that. This article talks about the fact that we are reshoring solar manufacturing, and not just solar manufacturing, but electric vehicles, batteries, other things relating to renewable energy. These jobs are expanding a lot in the United States, and we've talked about this on the show at other times. Now, we have a picture. I like these clouds. This is a picture of Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu is a state in India. It's in southern India, as I recall. And this article comes from a publication called the New Indian Express. Tamil Nadu aims to generate 7,500 megawatts, which is 7.5 gigawatts, of additional renewable power via 3 new policies. The state of Tamil Nadu is aiming to add 7,500 megawatts of renewable energy capacity in the financial year of 2025 to 2026, supported by new policies, plans from major corporate players, and an exemption from interstate transmission charges. I've seen a lot in the last few weeks, but over the history of the time that I've been working on this, a lot in general. It just goes on. In the last couple of weeks, there's been a spike in interest. But a lot of what's going on is heavily dependent on some kind of policy that is run by a state, run by a country, or whatnot. And the effectiveness of our pursuit of renewable energy, of our phasing out of fossil fuels, the effectiveness of all of that is generally fostered or denied by policies. And the federal government, the states have the ability to just institute policies that don't seem to say very much, but they can have broad effect on the marketplace in that state or in that country. And I expect that we're going to be seeing that to an extent as the Trump administration takes over. We obviously have people who are working within the Trump administration to do as much damage to the growth of renewables as possible. Donald Trump wants to drill and pump and so forth as much as he can, and that hope of his was dealt a huge blow in the last couple of days. I will mention that again. But the difficulty of making the transition away from fossil fuels and to renewables is very largely just a matter of legality, of how easy it is or difficult it is to get permission to build something, to pass whatever requirements need to be passed. Okay, those clouds in that picture are fascinating. Now, this picture is from Tamil Nadu, and those look like updrafts. And the one on the left looks like it's got lenticular clouds on the top. And I find that really interesting. I don't think I've ever seen a picture quite like this before. Okay, the next item, we have a picture of a Cadillac Soleil luxury concept EV, which came from General Motors. This particular article is from Clean Technica. It is titled, GM's EV sales skyrocket and soon will be driving mushroom cars. That car looks kind of like a mushroom, doesn't it? General Motors is mighty pleased with last year's EV sales record. Electric vehicles, sales of electric vehicles grew in the United States for General Motors, for Ford, basically for everybody except Tesla. Along with Ford and other EV companies, General Motors put to rest all the gloomy headlines dominating the news in 2024. The big question is whether GM will bring back the Bolt with parts made from mushrooms. Yeah, that's what the article is about. It's a question that looks at General Motors and the Bolt. The Bolt was, I think, the most popular GM car in the past, but it's not selling. And the idea of making parts from mushrooms is something that the author to this article kind of wove into the story. Okay, we're up to Monday, January 6th, and we have a picture of a floating solar array. This particular picture was taken, a photograph was taken by someone from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, which is NREL. The story is from PV Magazine International. The title is, U.S. reservoirs could host up to 1,042 gigawatts of floating solar. That's a lot. That's the equivalent of probably more than double the number of nuclear power plants we've got. U.S. federally controlled reservoirs have ample potential for floating solar generation capacity. A National Renewable Energy Laboratory study says Capacity estimates range from 861 gigawatts to 1,042 gigawatts, showing a potential to generate about half of the solar energy needed to decarbonize the U.S. electric grid. And, there's a lot of talk about where we're going to get the land that would be required to put all the solar power that we need. And this is saying you can get half of it by just looking at federally owned reservoirs. These are not private reservoirs. These are not lakes. These are not rivers. They're federally owned reservoirs. And by doing that, you can get enough space without touching anything else to do a lot of work. Okay. The next article that we have also is from Clean Technica, and this is an interesting article. The picture here is just almost a random picture of the ocean. The title of the article is "Why is the Sea Rise Higher in the Southeast Than Other Parts of the U.S.?" It's a question. NOAA 210 continuously operating. Okay, let me start again. NOAA has 210 continuously operating water level stations in the United States and its territories. The Fort Pulaski tide gauge near Savannah, Georgia, has recorded roughly 10 inches of sea level rise since 1935, 10 inches in 90 years. Over 7 of the 10 inches came since 2010. So we had 3 inches over a period of 75 years, and then we had 7 inches in 15 years. Sea level rise is happening a lot faster. And by the way, the sea level rise is not just measured by tidal gauges. It's measured by satellite images, much more closely than it is in tidal gauges. And unlike the tidal gauges, which are usually placed in places where the water is deep enough for shipping and so forth to make use of the information, the sea level can be measured all over the world. And is measured all over the world continuously. This particular article addresses the question of why sea level rise is happening in the Southeast, and I will just say the article doesn't make this into a question with an easy answer. There is a lot going on. And the sea level is rising in Georgia, in Florida, in South Carolina, and so forth, faster than it is in other places. But it's a complicated issue. So I'm going to go on. We have an article from The Times. And quite frankly, I forget where The Times is. This may be a publication called The Times that is from the UK. There are other publications, one of which is in Pakistan. This is a picture, let me put it up, of a wind farm construction ship. And that is what's called a jack-up ship, which has been jacked up to the position that it's in. And it has towers that it can jack through the ship coming out the bottom, and you push those things down to the seafloor, and then you jack the whole ship up evenly. And that once you've done that, that ship is not going to rock, it's not going to move, it's not going to go anywhere, which gives you the steady base that you need to build a wind turbine out at sea. Now, this is not, one thing it shows you is that building wind turbines is not just an easy thing to do. The article is titled, "Wind is Biggest Source of UK Electricity for the First Time." Thousands of wind turbines, both on and offshore, have become the single biggest source of Britain's electricity for the first time, according to an analysis of annual energy mix. Wind generation rose to 30% last year, from 29% the year before, displacing gas-fired plants as the primary source. Now, this is a situation that is not stopping. It's going to continue going on because they are actively trying to get rid of gas for supplying energy for a number of, at least two important reasons. One is that they want to be certain that they're not paying to reward Russia for invasion of Ukraine. The other reason is that they have to deal with climate change. And of course, a third reason is that wind power is cheaper anyway than gas. Okay, we're up to Tuesday, January 7th. And, whoops, there we go. This picture is the Fox Squirrel Solar Project. I wondered why it would be called Fox Squirrel, but I didn't have time to look that up. The title of the article is "Ohio's Largest Solar Project Goes Online." The 577 megawatt Fox Squirrel Solar Project in Ohio is now fully operational, delivering full generational capacity to Amazon. Amazon is going to use it for Amazon's unique uses: artificial malice, artificial stupidity. No, I shouldn't say that. I'm joking, of course. It's being done for artificial, maybe they're using it to make artificial cheese. I don't know. Fox Squirrel Solar is a 50-50 partnership between EDF Renewables and Enbridge. The solar farm is the largest solar project in Ohio, though larger ones are being built. So this is not going to stay the largest one forever. It is. I shouldn't say things like that. You know, artificial. We should, instead of artificial stupidity, I should talk about artificial glee. Does that make sense? I'm sorry. I'm kind of down right now on artificial intelligence. I think the idea of artificial intelligence is kind of like artificial cheese, artificial meat, artificial potatoes. I don't think they're good things to eat, you know, and I think that we should be eating good food and thinking good thoughts, and I'm not sure about thoughts that come from artificial intelligence. Okay. The next item on the list is from ABC News. It's an American broadcast company, and we have a picture of an offshore oil and gas rig. There it is, and you can tell that that is not a station for a wind farm or something like that, because it's, for one thing, it's got that boom coming out from the side. That is a boom for conducting natural gas away from the station so it can be flared. And they want it away from the station so it can be flared safely. All right, the title of this article is "Biden's Move to Permanently Block Oil Drilling Sparks Trump's Ire." President Joe Biden is making a sweeping move to ban all future offshore and natural gas drilling, oil and natural gas drilling on America's East Coast, West Coast, Eastern Gulf of Mexico coast, Alaska's North Bering Sea. That's a lot of coastline. President-elect Donald Trump is angrily vowing to reverse the move. Now, I want to point out here, I have more information. This was again in the news today. I believe I will have that for next week's show, but I can give you a kind of a rundown on where this is going. And what it's going to is the law, which was passed as a bipartisan law many years ago, but the law that gives the president the right to block oil drilling and gas drilling off the coasts this is a real law. But the law does not have in it a mechanism that will allow a president to unblock such a thing. And the legal scholars that I've been hearing have addressed this and said, basically, if Donald Trump wants to unblock this, he's going to have to get the Congress to pass a law that alters that original law. And he may be able to do that. I don't know, because there's a lot of money involved in this. But Donald Trump apparently is livid about this. It's taking his ability to make money for the fossil fuels companies that have supported him. It's taking that ability away from him, and it may be something that he's not going to get back. We can complain about the fact that Donald Trump is favored by 6 of the Supreme Court justices. We can talk about that. That doesn't mean we're saying things that are necessarily true. There are people who have talked about that, but the Supreme Court has made decisions that Donald Trump doesn't like. So the fact that he's going to be president does not mean that this is going to be undone. And I think he's got a long and difficult road ahead of him to undo it. Okay, the next item is from Clean Technica. It has a Gen 2 Jouley electric school bus. This is from Thomas Built Buses. The title of the article is in Clean Technica. The title of the article is Thomas Built Buses unveils its 2nd generation electric school bus. Thomas Built Buses, a division of Daimler Trucks. I didn't know that, but I obviously missed something. Is a leading maker of school buses in North America. Thomas Built announced the 2nd generation Safety Liner C2 Jouley battery electric, Jouley, by the way, is Jouley, battery electric school bus with customer-driven improvements, that is to say, improvements that were suggested by and backed by customers, and advanced technology. That looks just like any other bus, as far as I'm concerned, school bus anyway. It looks a little bit different than buses looked when I was a kid, but when I was a kid, cars looked different too. I don't know how. I know that there are a lot of improvements for safety and things of that nature to get this bus on the road so that it can be used. And some of the things that are important here are issues like diesel exhaust, because the kids breathe the diesel exhaust. It's not good for them. Diesel exhaust isn't good for anybody, really, when you get down to it. Okay, I'm going to move ahead. We have a picture of Donald Trump, and of whom we have been speaking. This is from Renews, White House image, which I think that image is actually, I don't know the date on the image. It might have been from when Trump was president. The title is, Trump Plans Policy to Halt Wind. Donald Trump pledged to introduce policy to halt construction of wind turbines. The president-elect told the press, we are going to have a policy where no windmills are being built, end quote. I forgot to say, we are going should have started with a quote. He added, quote, "They litter our country, nobody wants them, and they are very expensive. The most expensive energy there is," end quote. I don't know where he's getting that information. I really don't. I can tell you that NextEra Energy put out its stockholder release in June of 2022, in which they explained how they were going to be doing investment in the future. They own gas plants. They own, I think they are still running coal burning plants, but certainly they've got 6 or 7 nuclear plants, including Seabrook. And basically they said they're only investing in, for new facilities, they're investing in what they call near-firm solar and near-firm wind. Near-firm meaning, and the stockholder document that they released doesn't say this in it, but if you go back to earlier documents, you do find it. To qualify as near-firm, solar or wind has to have enough battery backup so that it is at least as reliable as nuclear for dispatching electricity at peak demand times. Now, that is a statement that surprised me because you don't usually use nuclear for that purpose, but at least as I understand it. But that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to dispatch power. They wanted it coming from solar and wind, and so they have solar and wind charge a battery. When the battery is, when electricity is needed after the sun goes down or when the wind is not blowing, they get it out of the battery. And batteries today are getting more and more sophisticated. I've seen 100-hour batteries, which means that you can discharge the battery at full capacity for 100 hours straight. And, you know, lithium-ion batteries, it might be 2 hours, or if you've built a big battery, 4 hours. But this thing is 100 hours straight. And that being the case, NextEra Energy is saying, okay, let's look at the cost of the electricity. Solar is the cheapest, near-firm solar. Second cheapest on their chart, which by the way is in that stockholder release that came in June of 2022. I forget the name of it, but the chart I'm talking about, it's fairly easy to find on the internet. It's about 250 pages long. But on page 122, there's a chart that shows the relative costs of various power, and the cheapest is near-firm solar or near-firm wind, both of which are under 4 cents per kilowatt hour, they expect in 2030. It's true that nuclear is very cheap, but only once it's been paid down. So when you build a nuclear power plant, it's really expensive. The energy that it produces is really expensive until the plant has been paid for. And once that happens, you can get really cheap power out of it, which is why NextEra wants to keep a couple of old nuclear power plants running. But nevertheless, their investment is going to be in solar and wind. And Donald Trump does not want to build wind turbines. And he's going to have to explain to about 160,000, I think, employees why they're losing their jobs. So again, I'm not sure that this is going to develop the way that he talks about it or the way that news media seems to expect. I think this is something that is developing. And I mentioned earlier, there were a bunch of Republican Congress people who are asking to have an influence on the president in terms of the terms of the Inflation Reduction Act or Invest in America or whatever. Okay, the next item, after we have looked at Donald Trump, there he is, Donald Trump, making a point. We're going to talk about Joe Biden, who seems to be in on the joke. This is an item from Renews. The title of the item is U.S. Government Enshrines Renewable Tax Credits. The U.S. Department of Treasury and the Internal Revenue Service have moved to enshrine certain tax credits under President Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act into the American tax code before Donald Trump moves into the White House. The new rules go into effect on the 15th of January. And it looks to me like Joe Biden has a good idea of how that is all going to happen, and he feels confident of the fact that it's going to happen and that Donald Trump is not going to be able to undo it. Okay, our last story, we have a picture of a Honda Zero saloon prototype. That's a car. That is a Honda Zero saloon prototype. Now, I want to point out the word saloon, when it's applied to a car, basically means the same thing as sedan. The history of the word saloon is a little bit complicated. It means different things in different parts of the world. It means different things in Western movies than it does in French society in the 19th century. This is what's called a saloon car, which means sedan. The title of the article is Honda's Zero Electric Vehicle Prototypes, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Honda unveiled 2 EV prototypes, the Honda Zero SUV and the Honda Zero Saloon. We can see Honda is actually developing 100% electric vehicles that might be competitive and compelling models. These vehicles will be produced from the beginning of next year in 2026. And so this article takes a look at the vehicles that will be coming out next year from Honda. It takes time to develop a vehicle, and Honda has been, well, they showed this prototype and the Honda Zero SUV at an auto show this week, and in doing that, they showed that they were going to produce something new. So that is the end of the last news item. I have a last slide for you, which wishes you to have an impressively productive week. And I'm going to wave goodbye. I feel confident that if Nancy were here, she would wave goodbye. If Tom Fennell were here, he would wave goodbye. If Tom Fennell's cat were here, he'd wag his tail, I think. Anyway, I am looking forward to the next show. I want to welcome you to that. Thanks for watching. Hope you come back next time. Bye.